hit the recording. All of these recorded sessions will be available on our website at Arizona Commerce Authority. We'll put that in the chat here as well for everyone to have access. I'm going to introduce really quickly our team. Joining us today is Sandy Bomick, the State Broadband Director, Crystal Serverse, our GIS Analyst, and me, Perla Lopez, Broadband Program Manager, as well as Aaron Lorandos, our Digital Equity Program Manager. And I'll allow for our team here to introduce themselves. Priya, if you want to start introducing your team.
Thanks, Perla. Hello, everybody. My name is Priya Sankalia. I am a project manager here at Sanborn Map Company, and we have developed the application that you'll be using for the challenge process. It's called the Broadband Navigator. I have with me today my colleagues Caitlin Severy and Emily Casadaban, and also Mark Grinberg will be on shortly. And Caitlin will be doing the demo of the application, and we'll be available for any questions and respond to them in the Q&A. So looking forward to sharing the tool with you. So Perla, do you want to just have us get started, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
so then I guess, Caitlin, you can get started.
Okay, great. Let me just go ahead and share my screen and get this all opened up. I'm going to make that full screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So when you first open the Arizona Broadband Navigator, you'll be brought to this page. You will automatically see a splash screen here. This just gives you some background information about served, underserved, unserved addresses, about your state. Please review the information. You can exit out of the splash screen by selecting the X at the top right-hand corner. You can also select Explore the Map. If you do not want to see the screen again, you can select Do Not Show This Again before selecting Explore the Map. So this is what you will see. You'll see Arizona front and center. There are several things on this map that I'm going to go over. First and foremost, there are map themes. So here we have 3 map themes to choose from. By default, the map is showing service coverage with 100/20 megabits per second in counties. You can view the legend on the left-hand side to help you understand the map. If you'd like to change this, you can change them to service coverage with 25/3 megabits per second or number of providers. As you can see, as you change these, the legend updates and the map updates in each county. You can also select something other than county if you would like a different geographical boundary. By doing so, you can select here. These are the list of everything that you can choose from. So we can choose something like Senate District, and the map automatically updates to show Senate districts in Arizona. You can also see that the thematic map has updated to show the data in the Senate districts as well. There's also a funding toggle that is available for your state. To turn it on, you can select the funding toggle here. And you will see a funding layer that overlays the map. You'll also see a funding legend here. This shows each fund and the color coordination to it on the map. If you would like any more information about the fund, you can select Help and scroll down to Funding Layer, and it will show you any information on the funds. You can also use this help page for any information on the application itself or any information on your state's challenge process. For any more information, there's also the About tab. This has information on Arizona itself and what they're doing in the interactive mapping portal, Challenge Hub, data information, etc. On the map, you will also see something called Broadband and Digital Equity Indicators. Oh, and also to turn the funding layer off, you can select funding again. You'll see the broadband and digital equity indicators on the left-hand side here. These have coverage, speed, subscription, income, race, and age. This information is for the statewide level by default. You can also select data if you would like to see all of those together in numerical form. You can also select a boundary and have these update automatically. So here I will select this county. And now you can see that the information has updated automatically to just show the information for Mojave County. If you would like to display statewide data again, you can just select outside of the state and it will automatically return to the entire state of Arizona. By now, you have probably noticed these little donuts on the map. These are address clusters. The number in the middle shows the amount of addresses in that area. And then the green, red, and yellow show the percentage of those numbers of served, underserved, and unserved addresses. Right now, we're showing all served, underserved, and unserved addresses, but you can change this by selecting here. If you'd like to see just unserved, you can select unserved here. The donuts will automatically show just the unserved addresses. You'll also see that the number has changed to only reflect the number of unserved addresses in that area as well. You can completely hide these from the map by selecting hide, or you can return to view all of them by selecting all. These address clusters will also change as you zoom in and out on the map. To zoom, you can use your mouse wheel or keypad. You can also use the plus and minus at the bottom right-hand corner of the map. In addition, you can select one of the donuts and it will zoom into that area. As I'm zooming, you can see that the donuts are changing in composition and in number. This is to reflect the addresses now in those areas. As you zoom all the way in, you will see that now the address clusters disappear and you are left with address points. So these points represent one physical address per point. You can change the base map if you'd like. If you want to choose aerial imagery, you can do so up here. To change back, you can go back and select street map again. This is the default. You can select an address to view the information about it. So let's select this one here. And it gives us some information on its address itself. Here's the full address, the city and the zip code, the residential, business, or mixed use status. This one is residential. It will show whether it is served, underserved, or unserved. If it has a provider, it will show the provider information, technology, speed, and business or residential service at that location. Many will have multiple providers. If they're unserved and have no providers, this will just be left blank. It will show whether or not this point is funded. This one is not funded. If it was funded, it would be listed as funded, and then below it will show the provider and the fund. This point is not challenged. If it was challenged, it would say challenged below, but right now it has no challengers. Since we're not logged in, this is also where a public user may take a speed test or report a service issue. Zooming is not the only way you can access an address. You can also use the search bar above. As you search, the list will start auto-populating with some results. Select the one that is your address, and it will zoom automatically. This one is, sorry, outside of the state. Oh, that's New Mexico. So sorry. Let's go to this one. Here we go. It will zoom to the address that you've selected. And now here we can see an example of a funded point. We can also see an example of a point with multiple different providers. You can also search by other than address. You can search by county, House district, Senate district, congressional district, town, city, school, or census block group. To search by census block group, you can use the census block group ID. All others, you can search by their name. So for county, I'm going to start entering a county here. We have Mojave County, and it will automatically zoom to that county. It will also automatically update these broadband and digital equity indicators for that county. That's some overall view of how to use the map. Now I'm going to talk about some user registration. To register as a user, you can select sign in at the top right-hand corner. This will bring you to a sign in page, but you can select request a new account right below. Here you will be prompted to enter your information. So enter your full name, your email address, your phone number, and here you will be directed to an organization category. So you can choose from the three, which are unit of local government, nonprofit organization, and broadband provider. Here we're going to choose unit of local government. And then you will see a second drop down. So this drop down automatically, anybody who has already registered with a user with an organization, the organization will show up here. But since we have not had anyone register yet, we'll choose other and we'll type in our organization. So I'll just put test organization. So now when I register and I'm accepted, you will see test organization in this organization dropdown. So anybody else who's part of my test organization can now register in that organization. Enter your web page and select request. You will be sent an email that confirms your request for an account, and your request will be sent to your broadband office. Your broadband office can either accept or reject your request. If you're rejected, you will be sent a rejection email. From here, you can either re-request with the correct information, or you can contact your broadband office. If you're accepted, you will be sent a link in an email. When you select this link, you will be brought to a page to enter your password and the remainder of your information to complete your registration. From there, you can log in. I'm going to log in as a local government. Great. And now we are logged in and we were sent to the same page that we saw before. Here we can start talking about the challenge process. So I'm going to go over how to do a challenge. You can either zoom to your address that you would like to challenge, or you can enter it above. Let's do this one here. Here we go. So right now, I am at my address that I would like to challenge. Oops, excuse me. So you can select submit a challenge down below to challenge this address. Here you will be brought to a pop-up screen. The first on the pop-up screen is going to be to enter your service issue. When you select here, you will see the drop down of all service issues available to challenge here. So we have availability, data cap, business service only, speed, latency, technology, enforceable commitment, not a part of enforceable commitment, plan service, vocation is a CAI or community anchor institution, and vocation is not a CAI or community anchor institution. Choose whichever one is applicable for your challenge. Here I will choose availability. And you will be automatically directed to this next page. Here you can select the provider, technology, and speed of the ISP that you are challenging for this availability challenge. You can select your reason. Here I have a drop down. There are multiple different reasons here, so read through them carefully. And then you can select your property type. This is a residential address, so I will select residential. Make sure to read through the certification of individual or certifying official and the Privacy Act statement. If all information is lawful, you can select next. And now you will be guided to a page to submit your evidence. Here you will see a little blurb of what kind of evidence you need for this challenge type. You can select choose files and select your evidence. Your evidence must be in a PDF format. You can choose up to 5 types of evidence. All evidence must be under 5 megabytes for all 5. Here we can see that my challenge evidence was downloaded successfully, and you can see that by the green check mark. If you have attached the wrong evidence by accident, you can select X and then redo the process and choose files again. Here I can press submit, and now my challenge has been successfully submitted. You can also do bulk area challenges. Here, you can select the draw tool once you're zoomed in and you can go around any of the points that you would like to select. I double clicked at the end here to close the polygon and then press submit challenge. This will bring you to the same sequence that we were brought to for the one challenge, but now it just says bulk challenge up top instead of the address of the first challenge. You can only submit enforceable commitment, not a part of enforceable commitment, and planned service challenges as bulk challenges. You will be directed to the same sort of walkthrough. The next page, you will submit your evidence, and you could submit these challenges as well. You can do, if you have made the shape by accident or you forgot to include a point, for instance, you can clear the shape by selecting clear shape or delete. Now we can go to our challenge dashboard. Select your user icon on the top and then select challenge dashboard. Here we can see all the challenges that we have submitted. I did submit some previously, so not all of them are going to be the ones that I just submitted, but you can see your list of challenges here. This is the one we had just submitted now. Everything will be listed with the status, the challenge ID, the challenge type, and the date. And you will see where your challenge is right now in its life cycle. So the one we just submitted here is currently awaiting review. So what that means is that the challenge has now been sent to the broadband office, and the broadband office is reviewing evidence. If the evidence is accepted, it will now be awaiting rebuttal. If the evidence is rejected, it will now be a completed challenge because it is no longer in its challenge life cycle. The life cycle is over. If your evidence is rejected, you will get an email saying why your evidence was rejected. You will have a chance to resubmit that challenge within your challenge phase. You will have to do the same exact steps as what we just did by searching the address, selecting the address, submitting the challenge and evidence. You can also rebut challenge. So as you can see, these are awaiting rebuttal. Those that are awaiting rebuttal for challenges directly against an ISP, those rebuttals will only go to the ISP dashboard. That ISP can then rebut the challenge, and it will be either accepted or rejected. All other challenge types will go to open rebuttals. You can select open rebuttals here, and you will see any challenges that are enforceable commitment, not a part of enforceable commitment. Location is a community anchor institution or CAI. Location is not a community anchor institution or CAI, or planned service challenges where the evidence has been accepted and they are now awaiting rebuttal. These open rebuttals are available to any registered user. You can rebut the challenge by selecting rebut, choosing your evidence, and selecting submit. The open rebuttal will remain in the open rebuttal here until it has either been accepted, the evidence has been accepted by the broadband office, or the rebuttal phase is over. You can rebut any of these in here, and they can be rebutted as many times by any number of users until the broadband office accepts. That is just sort of an overview of everything. I want to open the floor for any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you so much for that, Caitlin. We do have a few questions in the chat here. One of them is, will there be a way to filter out these served locations that are already being funded or have an enforceable commitment?
That is a good question. Is Mark on this call?
I am. Hi. My name's Mark. Let me turn on my video as well. In order to filter those, you can, there's not a default way of filtering those in the application, but what you can do is using the drop down that Caitlin showed you to filter served, underserved, or unserved points at the top of the map. You can turn that on, and then you can turn on the funding overlay as well. And by using those, you can see only the points that are unserved or underserved. and as well as the locations that are, yeah, so exactly, you can change that to unserved, and then you can turn on your funding toggle, which will show you where there's funding. And that's a way, so these locations are obviously funded. And if we zoom out, you can see some locations where there isn't funding, and there are underserved or unserved. And the reasoning behind this is just, we don't want to make it too restrictive. You want to be able to see all the points, or some of the points, and be able to kind of get a wider spread view of the locations on the map.
Thank you so much for that, Peter. We hope that answers your question. If you want to have any follow-up questions, please continue to use the chat. Another question we have from Peter as well is, how do you add additional user or admins? The supplied user guide shows a small plus sign to add a user or admin.
Caitlin, I think you're muted, but I'm happy to take this one if you want. As far as that is concerned, if you are a local government and you're local government organization and you're going into add users, those users can just register and choose your organization from the drop down when they're requesting an account for the application. Unless you're a part of the broadband office, you will not be able to see that add users or invite users to your organization. So they'll have to go in and request accounts as part of your organization, and then have those accounts be approved.
Thank you, Mark. We have a follow-up question from McCoy Hawkins asking how to invite users that are working with me under my account, similar to the question you just answered.
Yeah, so same thing. If you need to invite users, just have them fill out the form to register for a new account, and the first person that goes in and adds that organization will just have to add it as an other organization, and then it gets added in, and then from there you can go in and see. Yeah, I think Caitlin's going to show us. So when we log in, you can click the sign in button, and then when you request a new account, you'll see all the organizations that have been populated in there. So you see this is just a test environment, so we're just seeing test local gov and local government organization. But if you're a new one, you can put it in as other, and then additional users that are coming in to help you in your kind of workflow and dashboards can go in and just select the organization that you created in the first step. And then once their accounts are approved, they'll be able to log in and create their password and log in, and then be able to join you in looking at the challenges that you're submitting, or submitting additional challenges, or looking at open rebuttals and rebutting those. And they'll be able to kind of participate at the same level as anyone else in that organization.
Thank you, Mark. We have another question here from Tom Homan. I also hope I'm pronouncing everyone's names correctly here. But it's asking, oh, I'm so sorry. I was reading off the wrong question, but the question is, where do we find the information about providers who received RDOF funding, and whether they are or are not going to follow through with broadband installation?
I can answer that question. So if you want, as an user, if you want to see the whole RDOF area, our data is more on the address level. So I would highly recommend probably go see, check the FCC map, and you can see RDOF funding from there, like a whole geographical area that who's funding in your county or in your city or something like that. When you go into the granular level, and AppGeo team, please feel free to chime in. If you go into the granular level, that's when you can see in the household level that which RDOF provider is covering your household. So as of today, the way NTIA sets boundary around the BEAD funding, any federally funded program, if it's meeting the requirement of BEAD, that means 100 by 20, using a licensed, using a reliable broadband delivery technology. That means it can be licensed fixed wireless, it can be through fiber or fiber cable or a direct cable connection. We cannot deploy BEAD funding on those areas. That means for those households, we have to wait until RDOF provider comes in and actually build using the RDOF dollars. If they file a default before we go through a procurement process to deploy BEAD funding in our counties and cities, we will consider them at that time. But if those are active project and they religiously file their report with FCC that how they're building their 40% by end of this year and 60% by end of 2030, those areas are going to be federally enforced area, and state won't be able to deploy BEAD funding there. Peter had a RDOF question. I currently see a duplication of federal funding with the wrong data. So how do we submit the information to fix the map with the correct data set? So Peter, happy to unmute you if you have follow-up question, but my answer would be the deduplication data you are seeing on our end regarding any federal program, that means RDOF, non-RDOF, ECAM, FCC US, other FCC program, CAF2, USDA, those all came from NTIA. The deduplication file was provided by NTIA. So we just implement that as a layer. So it's as per NTIA, the data sharing between NTIA and FCC kind of updated that data set. So what you are seeing is dictated by NTIA, not by us, but happy to take any follow-up question from there.
There are a few follow-up questions from Peter, Sandeep, if you want to address those as well.
Oh, sure. Those RDOF areas shows up at funded. Will they be updated to show which provider is obligated to do this, to that location? Yes. So FCC has a provider ID. In some cases, what happens, the FCC provider ID was not provided to NTIA. It normally pulls from that geocoding tool to update the locations and update the provider's name. If you go back, it's not only RDOF. If you go back on our ABDG data, you will see some of the provider's name is missing. That's because they are not still, I would say, registered, probably lack of finding the better word, with FCC, so it cannot be directly pulled out from the FCC database. We're working with them so that they can go through the registration process and we can update, but that's something we can definitely address during before we kick off the challenge process. I think your question is more geared towards that you want to see the provider's name in the map when you are searching by the locations, right?
Peter, we've given you access to be able to talk if you would like to add any additional comments.
Thank you. No, Sandeep, you answered that question correctly. It was just when you look at the RDOF funding and you can click through the individual BSLs, every once in a while you'll see one pop up saying who that provider is, and then you'll go to the neighbors and then it's not there. But as you said, you know, if it's based off of the FCC's ID, then I understand.
And it's also more on what NTIA provided us. That the deduplication data, it directly comes from NTIA. So the way it works for the whole group here, we took our ABDG data, FCC took their data, and they all sent it to NTIA. NTIA gave us this federal funding data. So it's one of the question, and I also noticed that there are some tribal connectivity program on top of the ABDG, which is not a big trouble for us because technically those are going to be connected with fiber to home. Peter, doesn't require any challenge or anything, but those directly came from NTIA, those data sets. So we just integrated that data into our module.
Yeah, my concern with that federal funding is that if it's not on top of ABDG and it's on top of an actual unserved location, how do we go about that? It's showing as federally funded when it's not.
Well, there are a lot of programs going in the background right now, which might be federally funded and not directly updated in the portal. So we have the latest data from NTIA's deduplication team, which is basically portraying in the map. So happy to answer more question regarding that, but let me check on my side as well. But the data you are seeing from federally deduplicated area, that all came from NTIA.
All right. So is that something that you guys plan on cleaning up in the map, or is that there
I
to
don't
stay?
think we have authority to clean it up. We cannot delete those files because those are directed by NTIA not to basically change anything or any modification. Any deduplicated data came from them. So if it says that it's funded, we have to consider that funded, but I can get more clarification around that definitely.
All right. Thank you. I did have one more question. It was about the community anchor institutions.
Mhm.
There are actually quite a few throughout several of the counties that I'm looking at that are showing up as unserved when in fact we know that they're being served via under E-rate or some other provider.
Mhm.
So is that something that we have to individually challenge every single one of them?
No, you can, if those are locations far from each other, yes, individually challenge, please. Those are the Community Anchor Institute data location we found, and we basically run a simulation based on the fibers or cable 500 meter within that location. So if that E-rate was funded, but that was never submitted to any publicly available portal or privately available portal, it did not show up into our simulation. So yes, you can definitely submit. That's good news, right? If something is unserved, something is underserved, and it's connected right now, that's definitely take off stress from the BEAD dollars.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know if there would be a more streamlined way to go about this because there, like I said, there are quite a few that I've already seen through just a few counties. So I could imagine how many are there going to be throughout the whole state.
Got it. AppGeo team, got a quick question. Is this possible to submit a bulk challenge on a Community Anchor Institute in multiple areas?
I mean, the problem basically, Peter, Sandeep, is that you need evidence for every one
Oh,
point.
yes.
And
Yeah,
that is the
sense.
requirement from NTIA. So that's why we're not allowing, bulk challenges like that. So unfortunately, you would have to go and individually submit them. I just want to make
Okay.
one quick note about the funding data, just as a clarification. You might see a discrepancy between like the polygon and the actual point. And that's just because of the nature of the data, because we've gathered whatever we could for the spatial components. That's more of a reference. You might find that there might be a location which is showing the polygon is funded, but it isn't. So there might be a little bit of discrepancy there, but go with what the point says. That's what that means, that it's funded or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for that question, and for Priya and Sandeep for answering that. We do have more questions from the audience. Is there a way to download the data points from the map with the overlays applied? I know there's a separate download for unserved and underserved location, but not with the funding overlay, enforceable commitments, etc. Are these yet to be published?
Sandeep, I don't know if you want to take that, but we are not going to be, there's no download allowed. I mean, we're not allowing a download on the navigator.
No, there is no download option available. I think the only download option, I don't think there is a download option, even though if you get a BDC fabric data, if you get a Tier E or Tier D license as a local government or other entity, you will not even have a download option there. The max you can do, you can go to the FCC broadband map, go to the funding tab, and kind of filter it through that particular ISP through particular technology where they are serving. That's the max you can basically get out from any publicly available or licensed data source.
Thank you so much for that. Our next question is, how do we use the Take a Speed Test app for our community members? Can we embed this app in our website or social media posts?
So the speed test module is still not open, because if it's open, it will, and you take any demo speed test, it will consider it as a challenge. So it was intentionally blocked at this point. It will be open on 15th. And there was a request from some of the county members to publish a step-by-step process for the subscriber when they are taking the speed test. We have one already on our website. It's less details, but we are also going to work with our partners to publish something like that, that a step-by-step process. But in the meantime, the speed test will be blocked. Now, I don't think we have functionality to use a link as embedded to another website or social media post directly, but I would let AppGeo team kind of answer that question.
Yeah, that functionality is not currently developed in the application, just because it has to be very specific to the challenge portal and the challenge process. So the way that the system works is that, based on NTIA's requirements for generating challenges, if a citizen takes a speed test at that location, they receive speeds that would indicate that they are materially seeing speeds that would make them unserved or underserved. So let's say they're getting 80 down, 80 megabits per second down and 5 megabits per second up, or one or the other, or even speeds close to that threshold of being or underserved. Then we are bringing them back for their second and third speed tests 24 hours after their first and second speed tests. And then if they get all three of those speed tests all within that threshold, we're taking the median of those three speed tests and using that to generate a challenge on their behalf. And then that challenge is reviewed by the broadband office and potentially accepted and rebutted by the internet service provider that is being challenged at that location. So yeah, it's not embeddable just because of those kind of expansive requirements related to the speed test.
Thank you so much for that. We have another question here. So the speed test module will be available for community members on the ACA website on March 15th.
Yes.
Correct.
Alrighty, that concludes all the questions that we had available in the chat. But while we wait for anybody who has any outstanding questions, we're going to read off a few questions that were asked in the chat that were answered while the session was going. One of them being, can more than one person from a governmental agency register? The answer was yes. We have another question is, how do challenges where there is zero service existing get submitted? The answer was, if there is zero service, it is eligible for BEAD funding, no challenge needed.
Yes, there is no challenge needed. I think this is more of a question what Peter asked earlier, folks. I don't know if he's online. Feel free to bring him back as a panelist. So I went back to St. John's from the broadband website, basically, the FCC broadband funding map data, and I can post a link here. And I saw that White Mountain Apache tribe, the TBCP funding went to them. There are some St. John's address in there. Not sure how that happened, but FCC is presenting that data themselves as well, that those households are going to be connected with TBCP. So I just wanted to make sure if it was an error on our side when we cleaned up our data and integrated that into the map, or it's an data directly come from FCC. So I just found out that no, this data directly came from FCC. So in the FCC broadband funding map for any other federal funding here in the state of Arizona, it's in the map right now. We can talk more, but that's a grant submitted by White Mountain Apache tribe, and those addresses are included. That's how the data set came to us as well. And as per the NTIA guideline, we'll be presenting the data as it is without manipulating that, because that's basically federally enforced area. So happy to share that link with you, Peter, right here.
All right, we have a question from Candace. She's going to unmute herself so that she can ask the question.
Hi, everyone. I am with the broadband team, but it just struck me to ask this question, and someone else who is participating may have the same question. Are you able to leave the session, or do you have to go from start to finish if you're going to submit a challenge?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but my assumption there is that you're saying if you like close the website as you're submitting a challenge and then try and come back to it later. Is that correct?
Yeah, like if you need to leave because you need to go gather the evidence and, convert it to a PDF, do all that sort of thing. Can you leave the session, sign out of your account? Does it save the information where you left off, or do you need to initiate from the beginning?
So you do need to initiate from the beginning. There's only a couple questions that you're asked on each challenge type. So it probably takes, maybe a minute to 30 seconds. If you do, let's say you realize that you submitted a challenge and it's on the wrong location and you haven't hit the submit button yet, but you're looking at that confirmatory text in the window that pops up to submit your challenge up at the top that shows you, you're submitting a challenge at 123 Main Street, and you realized you actually wanted to submit it further down the street or something along those lines, then when you close out of the window and select the new location, it does populate all of the information that you previously had gathered or selected. So let's say you're challenging a particular provider at that location with a particular challenge type. When you open up the new location, it will pre-select that challenge type and pre-select that provider and any other questions that you've already answered. But once you log out, that's kind of, you're logging out, you're closing down for the day or whatever length of time that you have submitted challenges. And at that point, it's kind of shutting down everything for, safety and security.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So to that point, actually, Candace, we would recommend that users prepare their evidence in advance before they start submitting challenges. So that's just ready with the evidence, all ready to go for that specific location.
Thanks, Priya. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something that when we talk to our stakeholders that, we can do a better job communicating that. That way they'll have all their documents saved to whatever, wherever they need to save it so they can just pull from there directly and be able to load that. So I appreciate that clarification. Thanks.
We have another question in the chat here. It is, I would like to echo the question that was asked previously, which is, when will the speed test module be available?
That'll be available on March 15th.
Thank you so much. We do have another follow-up question here is, will the area drop-down search for city/town be updated to show their respective borders? Currently, that part of the search shows no options.
Sorry, I'm not sure I quite understand the question. When I'm searching for a location using the area selection and switching that to towns and cities, and then searching for a particular town or city or census designated place, then at that point, it is showing me the border of that location. So hopefully I'm getting that question correct and understanding it properly. But that's my understanding of the question. It does work that way, that when you select that location, it is grabbing it, but maybe there's some behavior that I'm not familiar with.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Caitlin
okay.
here
So
for sharing your
seeing
screen.
the update from Peter, sorry, Perla, that it would seem to not show up St. John's, for example. So I believe, and Priya can chime in here, but I believe that for the towns and cities, we're just using, yeah, exactly. Thanks. We're just using the census designated places. So if St. John's is not in that list, that's why it might not come up. Is that correct, Priya?
Yep, that sounds right.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Peter said, got it. Thanks. I know you guys have also access to seeing that chat. Thank you all so much for your time. We have all the questions answered here in the chat. If there's any additional questions, we did post here in the webinar chat our office hours. If you would like to join us, we do have 2 full hours designated for any questions about the portal. We do have a few people who scheduled time today, and if there's any available slots, please go ahead and schedule a time with the broadband office to meet with us and go ahead and go into further detail if there's any outstanding questions. I'm going to give it about a few minutes if anybody else has any outstanding questions that they would like to ask. We want to appreciate the time, and we're very thankful for Priya and your team for joining us today to host these demos. And the next one will be taking place on March 7th with the tribal governments. As a reminder, when we have these sessions going on, we do make sure that there's a category for each one. There's one for local government, internet service providers, tribal government, as well as nonprofits. Each one is dedicated to your industries. I just want to make sure that whenever we have anybody from other areas joining us in these webinars, we do remove them so that it stays designated to either tribal government, internet service providers, local government. We are very admin to looking at the participants and who has joined, and we make sure that whoever joins, they are in their dedicated webinar time. Thank you all so much. We have these webinars posted on our website. The recordings will be live and posted on our website as well after these sessions are fully uploaded. Gave it some time there, some talking time, to hope that there was any other questions in the chat. But if there isn't any questions following up, that concludes our session. And thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.